Hello, everyone. Welcome into the channel. My name is Rick. I hope everyone's doing great. Getting into a reaction of Marilyn Manson and kind of a mini documentary of him being in a bad place and then getting to a better place. This came up as a request after I did a reaction to him and Falling in Reverse. Ronnie, they did a collaboration on a song, and then there was a request for this one because I had fallen out on Marilyn Manson quite years ago. I mean, I hadn't followed his career, what he'd been doing. So they suggested this. It's something I haven't seen. I didn't even know he was in such dire straits at any point. But it was, it piqued my interest, and the request came from Peak, by the way, is the person who did it and reached out to me on coffee. So I'm excited to get into it. I always like a success story. It's bad when people are in a bad place, of course. But when they can turn their life around and start doing things better for themselves internally and mentally and all that stuff. But it also reflects outwardly if they stay with their arts, like music in this case. And we get to reap the benefit of them making a turnaround. And those stories should be highlighted for people who are able to tackle and overcome their demons. So let's get into it right now. That's kind of a long intro. I apologize for that, but I just wanted to set it up a little bit better. But here we go. Possible comeback.
There's a point in every musician's career that I know of where they make a significant, or in some cases drastic, change in their sound, which is often met with criticism by the artist's respective fan base. Especially when it comes to heavy music, most bands tend to become less heavy and more commercialized, becoming somewhat more mainstream friendly, when in many cases they were the very antithesis of commercial music to begin with.
You know, we were kids who were suddenly famous, and we became every cliche that we hated. We fought every cliche leading up to getting signed and going out and playing shows, and then all of a sudden we had everything.
As a result, many fans have major falling out with an artist or a band. In case of Marilyn Manson, I can say with significant amount of confidence that it was Hollywood that is considered by many fans to be his last truly great record. In my opinion, it was the golden age of grotesque. I think that album had an interesting concept and does not get nearly enough credit it deserves. It was dark and heavy, with good songwriting, and it leaned way more into that industrial element of Manson's sound, thanks to which this record confidently stands on its own feet. But
I can agree with that. That's probably where I fell out on him, that last particular album that he's describing right here. So I can relate to that part of it. And I agree with everything he's said, setting this up.
But after this point, Manson's music began to fall out of favor with me for a few reasons. He began to lean more into topics that addressed his personal battles, instead of making thought-provoking social statements, criticism of authority and entertainment industry. This is what he was mostly known for.
Show.
There is nothing wrong with exploring more personal subjects, but with this personal approach, his mysterious persona began to dissolve, and he became more human, for a lack of better word, and interest in him as an artist began to wane. Tabloid stories of him taking out a few ribs so that he could pleasure himself and Manson getting breast implants became a thing of the past.
Great stuff, man. I don't know where you got the idea for that, but you got breasts?
Well, you know what the problem is? Everybody hated me so much last year. Everyone loves breasts.
Right.
So, I get breasts and everyone loves me.
As a result, he became
Hilarious.
a far less interesting and less controversial figure in public's eye. With this, his music became less exciting, less aggressive, and more timid. His vocals, both live and on the records, did not sound quite as impressive. Honestly, by 2005 his voice started to go through major changes in a bad way, and I think this will be reflected in his studio albums in the following years, with Eat Me, Drink Me and High End of Low being very much on the lighter side.
Completely unaware
This
of
also
this too.
coincided with the change of what it meant to be a rock star at the time in general.
those, and see, that would be the time for me where I fell off, like this narrator is describing. I fell off that same way, and I can understand his interpretation of his art, and after that one particular album that he said was probably his best work, because if I did hear anything from Marilyn Manson post that album, it did seem kind of washed out a little bit. And I think that's what he's getting to. It was like, his voice is unmistakable, but it didn't seem like he was really kind of delving into the art that he had began, and that intensity of it. He just kind of flattened out, I think. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but I completely agree.
Of course, new fans came along who were able to appreciate Manson's new direction in sound and self-exploration to a far greater extent than his old-school fans, for whom Manson was an icon of rebellion and anti-establishment, a status which he seems to have lost by mid-2000s. For many years, I myself have lost interest in Manson as an artist, hoping that with every new release he will be able to recapture the magic of his earlier career, but unfortunately it never happened. In 2010s, Manson's public image was suffering quite a bit, leaving many of his fans disillusioned. Erratic behaviors during shows became frequent, resulting in poor live performances. He went into rants during live shows.
I don't want to fall onto you with my dick with that cord, so can you fix it, please? And don't give me an uppity look because you're not black.
Broke his leg when he pulled a heavy prop towards himself.
Oh, no.
Got sick on stage and was dragged off stage during a song. Of course, this was not because he was drinking orange juice every morning and was
Drinking orange juice every morning. He was probably, but there was a bunch of stuff in it. I'm laughing out of uncomfortableness, and knowing the problem that is being displayed here. It always amazes me in music and stuff like that when they're putting on a live show, how the show must go on, that saying. And you see this happening, the prop falling over and him getting sick on stage. And there's this force that the band has to just like, no, we just got to play through it. Whatever's going on, we got to play through it. When do you stop? How bad does it have to be before you stop and go like, man, is everything all right? But I understand it to the extent of entertainment and, trying to not provoke any kind of unwanted or unhealthy concern. What I mean by that is inciting anything with the crowd. You don't want them, you want to try to keep them entertained, because disappointment or something that may happen may incite some type of anger or crowd response that is negative, and you don't want that. So I think that would be the reason to play through it. But it's sad. Watching this is sad.
Was living a healthy lifestyle. Alcohol and other substances were one of the causes for his behavior. So, of course, Manson was not looking great at this time. It felt like he was very much becoming an old, washed-up, irrelevant rock star caught in a downward spiral. Not to mention that within this decade, both his mother battled dementia for years and his father passed away. But the string of bad events was not done with Manson just yet. In 2020, Manson's 11th studio album was released, titled We Are Chaos. But just as Manson began to promote his new album, the allegations and accusations against Manson came to light.
Now to the disturbing allegations against musician Marilyn Manson.
The actress taking to Instagram to expose who she says is a dangerous man, saying,
I was brainwashed and manipulated into submission. I am done living in fear of retaliation, slander, or blackmail.
I am here to expose this dangerous man and call out the many industries that have enabled him before he ruins any more lives. I stand with the many victims who will no longer be silent.
As a result, he was dropped by his record label and nobody in the entertainment business wanted to work with him. In simple terms, Marilyn Manson was very much cancelled. Even though Marilyn Manson as a public persona went through a lot of controversies throughout his career, most notably being accused of allegedly influencing the students of the Columbine shooting with his music, which was eventually proven to be false.
The kids weren't even fans of me. I think they probably thought that I was too much of a sissy because I was wearing lipstick. I don't really know.
The allegations that came to light were of more serious and personal nature and were targeting Brian Warner, not his alter ego. So this time things were different. This effectively put his career on hold. His public appearances became scarce and he has not given any interviews since the release of his 2020 album. For 4 years, Manson remained dormant as a creative who was too busy dealing with multiple lawsuits filed against him. In 2024, the allegations against Brian Warner were dropped. Some for lack of evidence, some due to the statute of limitations expiring. In return, Brian Warner dropped his defamation lawsuit against his ex-fiancée, effectively putting the allegations and legal battles behind him. It remains unclear whether the allegations were truthful, and it is unlikely we will ever know. Regardless, enough of Manson's contemporaries and fanbase stood by his side, which made it possible for him to get signed to a record label, Nuclear Blast, in 2024. On September 27, 2024, Marilyn Manson announced the release date of his 12th studio album, One Assassination Under God, Chapter 1.
I think this particular album, I think I remember seeing it, because the cover looks familiar, but all this is happening. I had no idea that he had all these troubles. I made it clear I didn't follow him. It didn't mean I didn't like him. I feel bad for him, through that whole thing. I almost kind of wish I had followed a little bit along, just to kind of touch, because I did like him as a musician, and I can say I still do because I'll listen to his older stuff. But this is quite a story.
Manson's return was announced. I honestly did not expect much from his new music until As Sick as the Secrets Within was released. And I must admit, I loved this song. This was the best song I have heard by Manson in 20 years. A return to form, I thought. But it was probably too soon to say that based on one single. But needless to say, this was a major surprise to me, so I began looking forward to his new album quite a bit. An album that would mark the return of Marilyn Manson in more ways than one. When new pictures of Manson and the music video for his new single were released, everyone was surprised as to how Manson was looking. There's plenty of comparison photos online that compare how he looked in the late 90s and how he looks in 2024. It truly did seem as if Manson built a time machine. He looks great, not gonna lie.
Yeah, you can see a fuller face,
the secrets within,
healthy tendencies,
symbolism, such as religious iconography, including imagery of fallen angels, the Virgin Mary, and scenes of Manson drinking from the sacred chalice, also known as the Holy Grail. which is considered to be the vessel that Jesus used at the Last Supper to share his blood before his crucifixion. This is of course in reference to Manson's recent very public downfall after the accusations against him were publicized in every possible outlet. The shot of Manson sitting at the table with the human skull behind him was inspired by Caravaggio's early 17th century painting, Saint Jerome in Meditation. Imagery of an octopus is seen throughout the video. In some cultures, octopus symbolizes wisdom, transformation, creativity, and flexibility. In spiritual sense, octopus represents ability to overcome challenging situations with creativity and intelligence. Also, Manson seems to be wearing an old-school pilot hat, which most likely refers to his addiction and the line in the pre-chorus of the song. This symbol is shown several times in the video, so it must hold some significance. As to what it actually means in the context of the video can be left for interpretation. But in alchemy, this is one of the 4 classical elements which symbolizes air. It also can represent the East, the soul, life, communication, and wisdom. And finally, in some shots Manson is trapped within a cephalopod-type placenta, out of which he breaks out by the end of the video. This symbolizes transformation or rebirth. Needless to say, the video says a lot about Manson's current state of mind and the concept of the new record. So
I'm gonna have to go check out this video now.
Secrets Within as his first single made total sense. I must add that the video looks stunning and visually reminds me of his Mechanical Animals and Hollywood era quite a bit, which makes perfect sense because the video was directed by Bill Yukich, with whom Manson has collaborated several times, dating all the way back to 1998, when Yukich edited music videos for The Dope Show and
another good one.
To date, Yukich has directed 9 music videos for Marilyn Manson. All 4 music videos from One Assassination Under God Chapter 1 are directed by Yukich. As Sick as the Secrets Within did very well on the charts, debuting at number 1 on Billboard's Hard Rock Digital Song Sales. The song also did well in the UK. August 16, the second single Raise the Red Flag is released, which also did well on the charts. The single was also released physically on the maxi CD as a limited edition of 3,000 copies. The song is more aggressive and active than the first single. In terms of sound, it also reminds me of the golden age of grotesque. And I have to mention that Manson's vocal performance on the chorus of the song is quite impressive. The music video, however, for this song is far more simple in comparison to As Sick as the Secrets Within. It's just a band performance music video. But this was for a reason, as this was an introduction of the new band lineup, which most notably features a female guitarist, Reba Meyers, who is better known for her main band, Code Orange. She is also the first female member in the history of Marilyn Manson. On social platforms, she was criticized for joining Marilyn Manson for obvious reasons, but it was not all negative, as she did receive support from numerous of her contemporaries, and she stood by her decision, posting on her Instagram, "I'm proud to represent growth, confidence, forgiveness, humanity, and change that comes with this, and to be up there with such talented motherfuckers." As for the rest of the new band lineup, on drums is Gil Sharon, who is currently a member of Stolen Babies, Team Sleep, and he is also the ex-drummer of the Dillinger Escape Plan, with whom he recorded the band's third studio album. And
I'm sure all these band members, I used to consider myself well into the know of music, as it were, and mainly in the genres that I listen to. None of these bands sound familiar to me. So talk about falling off the map. That's, I don't know. It's maybe I don't know why I don't know them. I used to follow music quite closely, but I'm assuming all these bands are what do you call it? Have reputations and all that kind of stuff, and to the point where now that he's mentioned them, I'm going to go I have to go take note of this and listen to some of these bands. Get back into some different type of music and stuff like that, which this platform allows me to do.
If you know anything about the Dillinger escape plan, you can appreciate how good of a drummer this guy actually is. He was working with Manson on and off since 2013 up until 2019.
I like the Marilyn Manson on the bass drum, the
Marilyn Manson once again, not only as a touring member but also as the recording drummer on the latest album. On bass, Matthew Montgomery, better known by his stage name Piggy D, who has worked with bands such as Rob Zombie, Alice Cooper, Wednesday 13 and Amen. He also
now I know
Marilyn
some
Manson
bands
in 2024.
and that name
and
sounds
last
familiar.
but not least, on lead guitar is Tyler Bates, who has previously worked with Manson on 2 of his records, The Pale Emperor and Heaven Upside Down, on both of which he's credited as the co-producer and co-writer, just like on the latest album. I think that Manson and Bates work very well together, which is evident judging by the new album. Initially, Bates was primarily known as a film score composer and worked on quite a few A-tier films in Hollywood over the years. He also worked with Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains. September 27th, the third single, Sacrilegious,
Alice in
is
Chains
released.
too.
Sacrilegious is more of an upbeat song. Thematically, it deals with the subject of martyrdom, resurrection, and cancel culture in a more direct manner. By saying in the lyrics of the chorus, so it seems like a perfect choice for a single. November 22nd, One Assassination Under God Chapter 1 is released, alongside the final single of the same title. The release date is not random.
President Kennedy has been assassinated. It's official now. The president is dead.
And this is not the first time Marilyn Manson makes a reference to JFK. Manson reenacted the assassination of Kennedy in the Coma White music video, portraying a crucified and deified Manson in the role of Kennedy. It expresses how John F. Kennedy had become a second Christ in the eyes of America, when his televised assassination had made him into a martyr in the public's eye. One Assassination Under God was accompanied by a music video which has more visual symbolism than the 2 previous relatively simplistic videos. Manson sits at the table in front of a birthday cake, which most likely refers to his rebirth. Birthday balloons are tied to the chairs. Balloons can be a metaphor for joy and freedom, but since the balloons are tied to the chairs with strings, it's reasonable to assume that both freedom and joy have their boundaries and limitations. In another scene, Manson is standing in rain holding an umbrella. Umbrella can have several meanings. It symbolizes unity, power, protection, and shadow.
Learning
Other
a lot
vital
about symbolism
symbolisms
here.
And metaphors are scapegoat, mob with pitchforks, and a mountain of smoking logs of wood, which most likely refers to witch burning in medieval times, which perfectly aligns with the lyrics. In another scene, we see Manson on a dirt road dragging a burning coffin, with a cross carved on top of the coffin. It may be interpreted as a burden and sacrifice. This scene is also reminiscent of a popular scene from the 1966 film Django. Drawing a parallel between the 2 images, this scene may serve as a symbol of deadly revenge like it does in the movie. There are several other scenes and lyrics that can be interpreted in several ways, but I believe the ones that I mentioned are the most important ones. The rest of the details most likely expand on the same themes and meanings. As an opening track of the album, One Assassination Under God serves as a perfect and all-encompassing song, which sets the theme and mood for the album overall. I think this is also one of the strongest songs on the record and works perfectly as an opener. Track 2, No Funeral Without Applause, is more of a middle-of-the-road song. Not too heavy, not too light. The chorus is definitely a standout here. The song also contains some of my favorite lyrics in the album in this bar. You can send away your firing squad, you're gonna need to behead me, immoral looking to be immortal, but nothing fits to a T. That's clever writing, not a foreign concept for Manson, of course. The lyrics and title most likely refer to glorifying Manson's public quote-unquote assassination, which a lot of people were on board with in terms of the events of 2020 and onward. But there's also references.
He put 2021 up there. I'm always amazed too. There's certain musicians out there that have excellent lyricism. They can poetically put things together and left for interpretation, but very thought out and dynamic. And he struck me as somebody like that. Maynard from his bands. And you can name a bunch of other lead singers who write their lyrics in a very thought out way. They know, and it's not just putting rhymes together and stuff like that or whatever it is, or making it flow through the song, but being able to incorporate the linguistics, I think that's the right word, and make it thought provoking, I guess is what I'm getting to. I enjoy songs like that, by the way, because I like the different types of interpretation you can apply to a single song. And the artist, I would assume in many cases, leave it open for interpretation. And that's how it becomes something more personalized to the listener.
Find Manson's public quote-unquote assassination, which a lot of people were on board with in terms of the events of 2020 and onward. But there's also references to close ones of Manson and fans who supported him during these turbulent times. I need somebody to stitch me up so I don't bleed on the ones I love. Track 3, Nod If You Understand, is the heaviest on the album and contains one of the standout vocal performances on the album by Manson. The song comes off as an angry revenge song and implores those who shamed him to look at themselves. Track 6, Death Is Not a Costume, has one of my favorite choruses on the album, and the outro with that pseudo breakdown is unexpected and works really well.
Like that groove.
Track 7, Meet Me in Purgatory, is another favorite of mine. It's more of an upbeat song, and the main riff as well as bass line are very good, even though rather simple. In terms of meaning, I have found this interesting fan theory. This is about Manson knowing that he will die before Lindsay, his significant other, given the age gap. By when they come to murder me, he means when I can no longer defend myself and they try to destroy my legacy with more accusations. Track 9, Sacrifice of the Mass. This is a heavy one. Manson mentions both his mother and father, both of whom have passed away, and he's getting ready to meet them. The darkest song on the record and a perfect closer for One Assassination on the God Chapter 1. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see what Chapter 2 will bring and how the story will unravel for this concept album. In regards to this, Manson said, "One Assassination on the God Chapter 1 is the first half of my story. These songs were conjured from purgatory and are as raw as a row of broken teeth that slightly resemble a smile. My art is what I live for. This album means to me exactly what I choose it to mean. I hope when you listen, it is the same for you." Chapter 2 is set for release in 2025. Ironically, the events of 2021 might have been the best thing that could have happened to Manson. Within the 4 years of absence as an artist, he seemed to have had a hard look at himself, reflected, re-evaluated his priorities and existence. Got in shape, got clean.
Thank you everybody for coming, I really appreciate it. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for everybody here, even the new people I haven't met yet. And everybody else who's loved and supported me. I love you guys. Thank you for everything.
We love you.
Listen to his voice there, because the perception of him is one of angst and anger, and that I can recall. But as he's speaking here, you can tell something's changed. the subtlety in his voice, the calmness, the peace, the fighting back of emotion in a public setting like this and talking to people. I can hear his vulnerability, and I think that is really cool to see and hear. Knowing that, you know, there is this persona on stage, and then you have an event like this where he kind of lets himself be vulnerable in front of others, which is part of his recovery or part of his newborn, whatever you want to call it, everything that happened in turning his life around. Probably it's also indicative of his realization of mortality, not immortality, but you know, that we're only here for a certain portion of time, short as it may be. And when you have that realization, you tend to kind of evaluate things in your life. And I find it refreshing. It's nice. It's just nice.
I haven't met yet. And everybody else who loves and supported me. I love you guys. Thank you for everything.
We love you.
Right there, his voice cracks a little bit.
In exactly 1 month, it'll be my 4 years sober.
Good for him. And he takes pride in that. You can see it.
So I get another cake then too.
Yeah, there you go.
And released, in my opinion, his best album since the golden age of grotesque, which is not an easy feat. I don't think I know of any band that has accomplished something like this so late into their career. This is indeed a return to form for Marilyn Manson in more ways than one. When it comes to art, it's been widely discussed that tormented souls seem to create the best art. Even though Manson has always been a magnet for controversy, the events of 2021 were different and had different implications. Perhaps challenging Manson was exactly what he needed for him to create another masterpiece, become a better person, and turn his life around. Currently, Manson is on tour, and I have watched some of the live performances here on YouTube, and I must say I was very surprised. I didn't think he could sound this good at 55, especially considering that the quality of his vocals was dropping rapidly in recent years. I think it would be a stretch to say that he sounds as good as he did at the peak of his popularity, but his live performances
close.
so far have exceeded any expectations I had. If I will get a chance to see him live, I definitely will. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Take care.
Great job, whoever, the person who did this.
How does it feel to be right when people underestimate you? They tried to take you away from me, and they tried to take me away from you, and they fucking failed!
They did. Seems that way. I enjoyed this. Lot happened in his life that I was unaware of, that I think I explained as I was going through this. He sounds good. It's always nice to see a recovery, and a positive and, to this point, successful recovery. Like I said, I could hear it in his voice. He has a vulnerability that I think he's not afraid to share now, and still has the inner workings of rebellion, and misunderstood in a lot of ways. There's a lot of shock musicians, him being one of them, that they present themselves that way, as I think, this is again my interpretation or my opinion, they present themselves in a way that it draws attention it does, and it doesn't matter the attention they get. But they do something to draw attention because they want that. They want it. And negative attention, I believe, to them is just as good as positive attention. It's kind of like I don't give an F attitude, but as long as all eyes are on me, I can make something out of it. And he did that. A lot of people, again, that rebellious type of, if you have a little bit of that inside you, but you don't act on it, you just kind of, you're not a rebellious person, but the outlet would be enjoying the music of somebody who, has that kind of rebellious attitude, and you can kind of like get satisfaction in listening to their stuff and like, yeah, this and yeah, that. And I feel the same way, and you just kind of like get validation for maybe some feelings that you have inside. He took it to a pretty extreme level. I'd never when I listen to music and I look at the antics of onstage performances or videos and how they're presented, and I take it at face value. I am not a person that judges based on that, because to me it's a facade, and I don't give it much weight. It doesn't influence. It shouldn't influence. If you understand, and I mean that. How do I mean that? If you can accept the fact that what they're doing is just acting out like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, or just a kid that's having a tantrum. It happens. You look at a tantrum and you're just like, oh, come on. But when it's carried over into the arts, this may be a bad example, so I apologize. But when you look at to the musical arts, and when people do certain things, it doesn't always have to be something violent or whatever like that. Maybe it's some other kind of like morphed type of visual or whatever it may be, that depicts things that maybe make you feel uncomfortable. That's again like an acting out type of thing that is presented in art. And but when you see it this way, you're left to kind of interpret it, like I was saying before, as how you interpret it. And that's also going to be about how healthy you feel about yourself. So if you do have demons and you have things going on inside, you may take that in a not so good way. Or if you just like, look, I'm okay with me, and this kind of stuff kind of maybe fills a void, some of that uncomfortable feelings or uncomfortable dynamics that may go on inside of you that need to be released in some way. Maybe you go out and chop wood, maybe you do something, to get aggression out, or maybe you listen to music. I don't know how many people, including myself, have indicated that heavy music brings peace. And I'm a true believer of that. If I was having a bad day and Pantera was something I needed to listen to, I turn it up full volume, and that whole rush of heavy and just thick music and vocals and pounding and aggression, I don't have to let it out of me, doing something physically. I can listen to that music, and it handles that aggression that I might be feeling, or that anger, or that uncomfortableness, or whatever it is, because I hear somebody else venting. And in a way, by proxy, it's helping me vent as well. So I'm rambling on as I tend to do, but the whole point of me going through all that is the acting out of musicians or people doing this kind of stuff, no matter how shocking, it usually doesn't. I see it again for face value. I enjoyed this. Hopefully you enjoyed what I had to offer to it as far as the reaction goes. A lot of this hits personally too, because people go through things, and we all have our situations in life that need to be handled, good, bad, or indifferent. And he went through some stuff that should he have continued to go down that path, we might be looking at a different scenario here. This might be about the life of Marilyn Manson post him not being around anymore, after he's moved on to other things and is no longer of this earth. That's not the case. He turned things around, saw that he probably hit his absolute bottom, and now we have somebody who's to this point has conquered some of his demons. Anyways, like I said, I hope you enjoyed it. Peace to everybody. Hopefully anything that's going on in your life, you are able to handle healthy and you have the support you need. And if you are going through things, I wish you well. My prayers are to everybody that have tough things to go through. And don't be alone. Alone sometimes can be healthy if alone is working for you. But if you're alone and you let your thoughts become larger than life, and you don't have somebody around to kind of share and get that stuff off your mind, it could be tough. So surround yourself with people you love and trust. You have to trust these people, because when this stuff comes out and you decide to share, you feel comfortable doing that, and that vulnerability is released. If it goes to an untrusting person, it can be used against you. You don't want that either. So make sure the love is there, the trust is there, and that'll give you the support you need to move on through tough times and to conquer whatever it is that you need to conquer. We'll see on the next one. I enjoy doing documentaries like this, so if you got other ones you want to recommend, please do it. You can do it on this platform, Coffee, as well. So take care. I wish everybody peace, be happy, healthy, and safe, and we'll see you on the next one.